All right, give it a second. Hello and welcome. This is the Writer's Room.
Welcome, everybody. This is the Writer's Room. It has moved, unfortunately.
Professor Geek died. He's not around anymore, and sadly, without him around in this world, we've decided to pick up the mantle.
Yeah, he showed us a GIF of where he went. There's lots of books, so he's happy. But, he got taken away to the rabbit hole of research, and we're not sure if we can ever get him back.
F in the chat to pay respects, please.
Pour some on the floor.
Or snap,
Or snap.
Gonna pour one out on the curb for the professor.
Yes.
Hold on, let me go get my whiskey.
So tonight we are going to have a bit of discussion about character development, but we're also going to kind of freeform, take it easy. The holidays are on their way, and we have a newcomer joining us this evening. William, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, hi, I'm William Hastings. My first book, The Crimson Spark, launched last week, and it's been doing very well. It's a coming-of-age dark fantasy. You should all check it out. It's really good. I think you're going to really like it, and I'm here to talk about character with you guys.
So, just to give a quick update on what we're going to be doing with the show, we're just going to kind of give it a shot, see how it works out. Keep to the every 2 weeks on a Thursday schedule. If it goes really well, maybe we'll go weekly. But one of the things we're going to change with the professor gone, unfortunately, is that we're going to try and have rotating guests, and every time we do a show, have a new writer on, and we'll discuss their work and try and gear the topic towards something in the person's book so they can talk about what they've been writing. Mm-hmm. And so that's why we've got William with us tonight.
And also, keep everybody up to date on what the three of us have been doing.
And, really at this point, I hear so many times now, well, look, is there any good books out there? Are there any books that aren't woke? Well, now not only will we be talking about writing, but hopefully introducing you to some new reading material.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, sorry about that.
So
my books are absolutely not woke. My books are fast asleep.
Nice.
So your books border on nightmare fuel at times.
Thank you. I appreciate it. That's what I was going for.
But the enjoyable kind.
Yeah. That's
so it's like Event Horizon, or
I had a quote from a friend of mine in real life that was just miserable enough to stay interesting.
okay.
I would say those. What was it? Was it Creep Show? No, I don't think it was Creep Show, but it was the one where the short was with all the cockroaches swarming all over the guy. Yeah, but with kids.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's about right.
There was a horror. It was kind of like a Tales from the Crypt kind of thing. I can't remember, like Tales from the Hood or something like that, where they had something similar to that. It was this, obviously a white guy. He's like a white senator or something, and he bought into this old, black. There's plantation house that was run by blacks and everything, and then they found out that it was like a whole voodoo thing, and there was a bunch of little baby dolls, and there was just this one that he found at first, and he killed it. Like, it took him the whole show, and he killed it, and then all of a sudden he turns around and there's like 100 of them.
That sounds really cool.
So give the listeners a quick rundown of your book, William.
Okay, so The Crimson Spark is a story about a boy who's lost his twin and a girl who is living as a boy, both of whom have suffered some kind of nonspecific trauma, and they have to choose whether or not they're going to fight and stop a revolution at the hands of an illusionist who was a former child soldier.
Okay. Do you have like a website or something like that they could you could bring up and they could share? You could share and they could, link in so we could see it. Is that okay with you guys? Ish, Kat?
Oh, of course.
Yeah, I'll put it in the private chat.
No. Well, what you do is you share it. You share
share the screen. Oh, okay.
Yeah, you can share your screen and then they'll pull it up and then we should be able to see it.
It's technology.
And what would you say the setting is? We've got kind of a sense of the story arc here, or the premise. What's the setting?
The setting is in a fictional Mediterranean archipelago. It is in our world, but it's in a place that does not exist in our world. So there's fantastical elements to it.
Doesn't have a red sun, does it?
No, unfortunately not.
Thank you, because I do in one of my.
Wasn't that the World's End series that was popular in the 70s? And the whole thing was it was kind of a sword and sorcery barbarian story, but there was a red sun. And the big twist is, of course, it's Earth in the distant future.
I don't know.
Oh, I don't know. Anyway. So, in that note, since you've got two characters, they're both what, teenagers?
Well, the protagonists are Leo is 13 and Nia is girl. Is that? Am I still allowed to do that, or am I still allowed to differentiate them as the boy and the girl?
On this show, you are.
You know, as long as they have more character development than Rey from Star Wars, I think we'll be happy.
They do. I can tell you.
It was a joke, you know, because you know.
And how did you go about creating? I mean, from what I understand, and I know this from talking to Kat.
See, you're good because I knew too much, so I'll probably spoil things. So you're good.
How did you go about developing these characters? I hear that it kind of ties into your work.
Yeah. Well, what I really wanted to do was tell a fantasy story that was more focused on characters than on setting. I wanted to tell something that was a plot that was driven by the arcs of the protagonist. So it's centered around these two characters and their development as people throughout the story. And it's based on some work I've done with kids in education, kids who have come from similar backgrounds.
Okay. How is it based on those?
It's all about the effects of abuse on the developing mind, which on the surface sounds, like a really miserable topic for a fan.
No,
right. But it's more than that. It's a co-development of the two of them, basically. And my whole goal is to show their personalities basically being rebuilt. Sorry, I'm saying basically a lot, I know.
It's okay. No, I get it. Like, speaking from not really an intensive by any means, but a fairly well-educated psych background. I mean, that's always an interesting thing if you approach it right, because basically you're talking about like the defense mechanisms, the coping mechanisms, the different sort of, the ways that they get through their struggle, because we learn through struggle. We don't learn as much through success.
Absolutely.
But writing characters, or especially young people, from that mindset, I mean, how do you go about researching that? I'm currently writing a character who's 16 years old, and I got to be pretty upfront. The research has been a real pain in the ass, because at my age, and I wasn't a normal kid to begin with, that is something a bit difficult for me to relate to.
Well, I'm a little bit younger than you are, Ishiro, but overall, I think it has to do with conveying sort of a backstory. I come from sort of a similar place as these kids do, not obviously to the extent that they do, but it's just, I wanted to tell stories about people who were struggling with mental health issues. And
so what we're saying is you got to go find an asylum and kidnap a kiddish.
Yeah. And then just make sure they're healthy, and then just study them for like 24 hours. And then
you got to pay them, you got to pay for their like food and water. It'll almost be like having a pet.
They'll write the book for you, basically, once that's done with. Yeah. And that's how I met my dad, everyone.
So you weren't like a nerdy kid with glasses and a scar on your head that lived under the stairs, were you?
Yeah. No, that's actually exactly what I look like.
You're a wizard now.
I have like lopsided eyes too, and like the bad teeth, like Jason.
I swear to goodness, that's like the only book that a lot of newer neophytes or whatever you want to go, bibliophiles have read. That's the only series that and Twilight.
It's funny that Harry Potter's, and it does technically feature that sort of abused protagonist. I was going for more of a Dickensian Victor Hugo-y darkness in the face of the world
Mhm.
sort of vibe. So it's closer to Oliver Twist than Harry Potter.
Well, I mean, you read like a lot of the classics, like you're saying, Oliver Twist or Treasure Planet or any of those kind of things. I mean, they were, even like Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn would be considered violent for today.
Oh yeah,
We probably put it YA, and I mean, back that was a child's book.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so sorry to interrupt here, just real quickly. I'm seeing that out of the 12 people watching, one of you sons of bitches gave us a downvote. Now I can deduce which one of you did it because there's only 12 of you listening.
Okay.
Oh shit, I've been found out.
Anyway, sorry.
Damn it.
But so yeah, the Dickensian part, I mean, that's interesting. The story I'm currently writing, although set in a cyberpunk setting, does have Dickensian elements. And I did a lot of research into the kind of work and kind of lives a lot of the orphans went through in England during that era. I'm real big on research. The other place that I looked, and I guess this was more to take me back to my own youth and try and recapture that mindset and that kind of thinking, was watching the interviews from Decline of Western Civilization, the punk documentary from, I believe, 1980 by Penelope Spheres.
I've never seen that.
It's actually probably one of the best windows into what punk culture was back then, and it really gives you a sense of the headspace that all of these young people were in, that were drawn to this subculture. But
oh, I'm sorry. I don't mean to interrupt you, but in the chat, Neostar Productions just said that he was reading the Prydain Chronicles at the time everybody else was reading Harry Potter. That's my favorite series of all time, and that's what I was trying to emulate when I was writing the Crimson Spark. So if you're a fan of Prydain, you should definitely check it out.
Can you tell us a bit about what it is?
Oh, Prydain is this incredible retelling of Welsh mythology. It's what the Black Cauldron comes from.
Oh, okay.
And it's like I said, I wanted my story to be this character focused fantasy. It's a character focused fantasy that centers around a boy and a girl who both have parallel development, and it's amazing and wonderful, and everybody should go read it.
Okay. I'll put it on the list. I'm trying to get through Hyperion.
Oh, that's a big one.
It's different. The beginning is just a lot of posturing about religion, it seems like. So it's kind of losing me.
I heard that the guy who wrote that is in a little bit of trouble.
Oh, really?
Yeah. People want to cancel him for some reason. I think it has to do with that whole climate change thing. I don't mean to get political, but a couple of writers I know that were talking about that.
What did he do?
There's a whole weird thing about that. Go ahead. Sorry.
I said, did he question the religion of climate?
Yeah. I think he said some stuff about that little girl who's being abused by her parents.
She is being
abused. You mean the little gypsy girl?
I think so.
No, Greta Thunberg.
Yeah, I know. Her parents might as well be gypsies.
Speaking of child abuse.
Yeah. Actually, that's a great example of child abuse. That poor kid.
Yeah, she's just being used. She's just being used and parroted around, in my opinion, as a someone that everybody listened to because she's this young, supposedly virtuous creature that she only wants to save the world. No, she doesn't. Her parents want money.
So, Dr. Wright, you also come from a psych background. How much does that play into your character development?
Only in the sense that I know how behavior should be developed in a rational way, and I don't do it. I mean, the way it's basically like we were saying, right? I mean, you grow through struggle. I mean, what happens is most children, I mean, so your social adaptation, your familial adaptation, all those kind of things, like most of that stuff you learn in family. But I mean, obviously, we begin to move away from the nuclear family. We got a lot of single families, and we got a lot of families that you and I always talk about, we were the latchkey kids, right? Because we were the first generation where both parents really had to work to support the household. So it didn't matter even if you did have two parents, they were gone. So it was just you and a television or whatever. You know what I mean? Books, television, Nintendo. Yeah, we're that old. And
we didn't have parents. We had machines to show us love.
That's right. We didn't even have virtual parents where you have, somebody speaking to you through a computer or something. We just had the, kung fu. So, but anyways, but what you're supposed to do is, you put yourself out into a situation, you fail, and you're supposed to have gotten a certain aptitude from your raising. And so you get through that situation. And what we do as writers is we purposefully stunt that and we make them learn the hard way.
That's a great way of putting it.
Or at least, that's what good writing is.
Yeah, what we do is we purposefully stunt that, that natural evolution, and we force them to become heroes. Because in that moment, they want something, they can't get it. There's a struggle. How are they going to get it? They have to find a way. And that's really that's it.
Yeah, that's I couldn't have said it better.
So, and that's why characters like Ray suck, because there's just nowhere for them to go.
That's sort of the reason I moved away from calling Crimson Spark a YA novel, was because YA is sort of populated by these flat, I think we could just say, just not very interesting protagonists. And
yeah, well, I mean, I think that I don't know. I don't know how many of you played TTRPGs, like Dungeons and Dragons or FOSSA games or Vampire.
Yeah. My dice are actually 10 feet away from me.
Well, there you go. But if you've played those games, if you've ever been a GM or a DM, then you usually, you've started, you didn't quite know what you were doing, and you made either your enemies too strong or you gave your friends too much good stuff, and then you had to compensate, and then the game just seemed weird until you finally learned that you had to let your friends struggle, because that was the only way they could be heroes. And you know what I mean? And it had to be kind of their story, but your place. I mean, there's different dynamics and everything, but what I'm kind of getting at is they don't understand that having a superpowered protagonist is a bad thing, because one, they don't know how to write Superman, because there are people that can write Superman or characters like that are really good. Right. But that takes a certain proficiency, that takes a certain skill level. And most of these, was it Stephanie Moore or
Meyer?
Something? I can't remember. Meyer. And all of them, they just didn't have it.
Well,
I think that was essentially just for masturbatory purposes, wasn't it?
Pretty much. I mean, unfortunately, a lot of the YA books that I've come across, with some few exceptions that got shoehorned into the genre,
Mhm.
The whole point of it was the girl herself, or the main character was almost always a girl, is supposed to be the frame for the reader to shove herself into, and then you always have the two love interests. You have the bad boy and you have the sweet boy, and it's which one will the girl go for, and the story always centers around the two love interests, and everything else is secondary. The plot is arbitrary at that point, and that's why a lot of YA sucks.
It really is this kind of weird self-insert fantasy for sometimes the author, sometimes the reader. It's become, to quote Mr. John Del Rose, a genre run and read almost exclusively by cat ladies.
Yeah. Young people don't even read the stuff anymore.
Well, I mean, what was the extension of the cat lady? The extension, or not the extension, but the predecessor of the cat lady, or ancestor. You know what I mean? Is what did you have? It was the lady sitting, the wine moms, sitting at home, watching Oprah, buying whatever book she said, and she, that was had, what was his name? Fabio.
Fabio.
No.
The Clan of the Cave Bear series. That's the one.
See, I wanted Fabio to be on the cover of Spark, but he wasn't returning my phone calls, so I went with this photo collage thing. It's not as good, but
Well, if you
dude,
look
you should get There's a lot of people out there that can do a really great cover for you for like a couple $100.
Oh, I love my cover. I'm just fucking around.
Okay, I'm just saying.
You know, by contrast to a lot of like YA female protagonists, the female protagonist in the Crimson Spark is violent, greedy, selfish, joyless, irritating, and kind of dim at times. But unlike YA, I'm sort of thinking that these are negative qualities. So her whole arc is growing out of these things.
Well, you've got a lot of room to grow there.
Yeah.
Actually, one thing I really liked about Crimson Spark is that everybody in it is deeply flawed. There is not a person in there that I would say, comes out, looking roses. Everybody has major problems that they have to overcome.
That's what I was going for. Yeah. And I think a lot of that comes with, I grew up working, volunteering in like a lot of like AA, Alcoholics Anonymous stuff. So that whole mindset of everybody's got some kind of baggage is one I've carried with me to adulthood.
Yeah, I mean, everybody does. Everybody's, imperfectly, or I mean, everybody. My friend always says imperfectly perfect, and I'm like, I don't like that. But everybody's broken in some way.
Yeah,
and they got to figure out how to work with the pieces they got, with the the jagged edges they got.
And you can see in the description for the Crimson Spark, it says that even broken souls can be held together.
That's a great line.
Yeah, that's good.
Not only is that the Crimson Spark, that's probably the entire Vagabond's Legacy series in a nutshell. If I could sum up all 8 books in just 5 words.
I mean, that's usually what dark fantasy is. Like when Game of Thrones or A Song of Ice and Fire, like as Martin was writing it, that's kind of what it was. Is that every character was flawed, every character was kind of screwed, and the ones that weren't died.
I guess so.
That's how I mean, it was too formulaic for me for that, but it pretty much was. It was like, if he's good, if he's honorable, he's dead. Sorry, out of there.
So you've got all these flawed characters. Do they all see their way through to the other side, or do some fail?
Oh yeah, most fail, I would say. Most people are. Most of my characters are conceptually, they are just the protagonist's gone down a different road. So the protagonist of the story has this traumatic backstory. So does the villain. There's just one little thing that separates them, and that's their connection with each other.
So let's go to a darker and more personal path, and you can refuse to answer if you want. Do you have personal trauma that you drew upon for this? Merely observation.
Sure. Let's say yes. I think that's fair to say. I'd rather not really go into detail about it, but it's. I think a lot of people are just, fixing what was done to them.
It makes sense. I mean, well, the reason I ask is there's always the debate: do you write what you know? Do you write yourself? Do you draw from yourself, or do you try and look outward? And there's always kind of those people who think, no, I've got to make it as foreign and alien to myself as possible.
I'm not against that. I'm actually, you know what I am? I'm actually really against the idea that you should only write what you know.
Yeah.
And that's another thing that's really prolific in YA circles, is this idea that you have to be from a certain group to write about that.
You got to be Japanese to be.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not a 15-year-old cross-dressing girl with anger management issues. So there's my stepping out of my comfort zone as a writer.
Yeah, I mean, that's cool though. I think that you have to do that. I mean, I joke about it, but it is true about like the impetus of my story, Sins of the Fae, actually started from Twilight, because I was forced to go with a friend to one of the Twilight movies. I very much let her know that I didn't like it at the end of it, but then we had this short discussion where she was like, "What do you think about the vampires sparkling?" And I said, "I think they were meant to be fairies," and her editor told her vampires sell better.
That's a really good theory. I've never heard that before.
And then I'm like, you know what? But like the actual Fae are, in their own mythology, pretty powerful, and I think they could kick a vampire's ass. And that was the whole impetus. That's the whole beginning. I want to write I want to write a story about fairies that kick vampires' asses.
That sounds awesome. I'm definitely gonna check it out.
So that's how it began.
I don't know, just vampires having late night family baseball. Just no.
It wasn't even late night. It was what was it? Overcast.
I have no idea. I just know that trying to portray vampires having a fun family outing playing baseball as anything other than hilarious is retarded.
Now, I know you guys are big fans of that Vampire the Masquerade, right?
Oh, I am. Oh, yeah.
I'm going to make an admission. I actually don't like vampires. They kind of get on my nerves.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, he
dun,
doesn't.
dun, dun.
I know they're kind of annoying. They're always trying to bite you.
But no, I've been playing a Masquerade since junior high, actually. So, yeah, a big fan.
And I think it's the romanticizing of a parasite that I just can't get over.
You can't see yourself having a hug time with the Leech Man from X-Files.
No, not really. No.
See, they're different. I don't know. I didn't like some of that, and I didn't want to deal with it. So I created my own mythology that fits with my world for vampires. I mean, for all intents and purposes, they are vampires, but nothing about Bram Stoker or anything like that fits.
Well, I actually do like the traditional concept of the vampire. If it's a animated corpse that's been possessed by a demonic force, and it has all sorts of weird limitations. I do like that.
Real quick, Snowman 0147 asks William, are you referring to the video game or the tabletop RPG?
The video game, which I'm barely old enough to even remember the video game, but I don't know anything about the tabletop RPG.
You need to go get the tabletop RPG if you like that sort of thing.
Oh yeah,
Vampire Masquerade. Yeah, it's a lot better.
Hop into my time machine and go back to.
It's out now.
It's still something that is produced.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, very much so. The only thing is like my knowledge of it is before what they called Gehenna, which was basically the world of darkness, all of the different species that you could play, vampires, werewolves, fae. It got so overpowered and so munchkin, they decided to have the actual apocalypse happen, destroyed the entire world, and then rebooted the whole thing. I haven't played the new series, but a friend of mine says it's excellent. But I have the second gen of the old series, and I love it. So
But in all fairness,
Brothers finally failed, huh?
Actually, even the original very first book from the series kept saying they're on the verge of the apocalypse. They kept claiming it was going to happen. So
Yin was going to have it. Although this is how hardcore or obsessed I am. I remember when the TV show came out in the 90s. It only had half a season, and I watched it religiously. My mom would actually let me stay up to watch it because I was in elementary school and it was on a school night. But you can get it. It's called Kindred the Embraced, and you can get it on DVD now for like $15, the whole series.
Wow. Okay. That's really interesting.
But,
see, I kind of missed that whole generation of tabletop RPGs.
I mean, they're still around.
Yeah.
They've become like, I hate to put this in such a simple way. It's not vulgar, but it's simple. The pretty people started playing them.
Normies? Or like the kind of geek culture sort of thing?
Yeah, I mean, like, one of the biggest ones as of late was Critical Role, which literally are, I mean, they're voice actors, but they're all pretty voice actors for the most part. And I'm not saying that like people are unkempt slobs or whatever, all of them that play play role-playing games and all that other kind of stuff. But what brought it in more into the limelight lately was pretty people started playing.
Oh, that's because of Stranger Things. But okay, I've got a question since all of us have played one form of RPG or another. Did you ever do the bit of using your character for a character in your story?
No.
No.
Yes, actually.
It's funny. It's about no.
Not in the Crimson Spark, no. But the character that I played in Dark Souls makes an appearance in one of my later novels.
Really, in Dark Souls?
Yeah, Dark Souls, the first one.
That seems like something you like.
Yeah. You're learning a lot about me, aren't you, Doctor?
No, it's just there are some things that are like that people don't think about, like Zombieland, the Zombieland 1 and 2. Zombieland 1 and 2 is actually about, what is it, 4 people coming to grips with the fact that they have absolutely no hope of survival, and the only thing they do have is each other.
Yeah, and I think that's why I like it.
People, they listen to, you watch like the crazy antics and the things that they do, but how would you be if every day could be your last? I mean, it can, but what if it was in that circumstance where anytime you went to the bathroom, something could come into the corner and kill you, or you could become one of these things and your own family would have to kill you.
I mean, I live in North Carolina, so admittedly, that is kind of like what my actual life is like.
I've been in North Carolina. It's not that bad.
In North Carolina, 2 a.m, you look out your sliding glass door, and they're like really pale, undead-looking people just kind of wandering.
Double tap.
Yeah. Especially at like Walmart at like 4 a.m.
Yeah, actually, okay. Yeah.
All right. So what's your rifle of choice?
I don't actually own any guns.
Wow.
Yeah, so I'm probably gonna be the
what kind of southerner are you, sir?
I know I'm the worst. I'm the absolute worst southern. My brother's way better than me, but he lives out in Colorado now. So
so he's too busy smoking weed.
Yeah, exactly. He's like, oh well, forget guns. I go get weed.
I gotcha.
Yeah. So his guns are around here somewhere, but I don't. I should probably, now that you guys mention it, I should probably go find them at some point. But
he's like, I want to step on one sometime.
Yeah, no. Like, what if it's like in the basement? And I just trip and like, that's it. You guys stuck. No more. No part 2 through 8. Crimson Spark is
somebody like breaks into your house. Takes the guns.
Yeah.
The thing about zombies is I always wonder why in these zombie movies they don't just start using ladders. Just get rid of stairs and start using ladders. Done.
Well, they didn't if you read a lot of the zombie books, like was it Nation is like Zombie Nation Z or whatever. I can't remember the name of the freaking thing now. The one like Brad Pitt was in the movie, but it's nothing like the book.
Oh, World War Z.
World War Z. There you go. And one of the things that they did was in the book, it was actually made by this like woman. She was she was just a housewife, like a chubby housewife, and she watched the zombies come into her house and kill her entire family. So then she created houses that had like retractable ladders.
Interesting.
They were like on stilts, like kind of like some of the houses down here, like they call it the Low Country. The houses are on stilts to keep out of when it gets high rain. Okay. And they had like ladders that would go down, and and then you could retract them, pull them up, stuff like that. And so, the books do that, but I don't know. Movies skip a lot of that stuff, quite frankly, because they can. They can just show a lot of flash bang whiz.
My favorite zombie movie. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say movies also have to, factor in what's going to look good on the screen. Mm-hmm. And people going up and down ladders isn't
very exciting.
Not very exciting, especially indoors. You might be able to get 1 or 2 shots, but usually that's in the montage of setting up all of your stuff before the big swarm comes, and then you have somebody die on one of those ladders because it didn't get up.
The only thing you'd have is something like where they have a ladder like up to a plane, and the one person that's been getting them through the whole time, like a Poseidon thing, where they've been getting them through, and then the zombie bites their leg, and it's like that's it for them, so they grab a grenade and take it down with them or something.
Exactly.
For that reason, my favorite zombie movie of all time is actually Return of the Living Dead, because the zombies in that one can run, talk, wear disguises, all sorts of cool stuff.
That
Are
is
they even zombies then? I mean, are they just like some sort of new race? They
Yeah,
just
basically, but
unliving?
you can't kill them. That's another thing. In Return of the Living Dead, you just can't kill them at all.
That
So
would just suck.
yeah, so you're done. But they'll get on the horn on like the police dispatch and be like, "Oh, send more cops. These ones are." And I think
that
the
is
way that they figure out to outsmart them in the sequel is they ask who the president of the United States is, and all the zombies died in like the 1940s, so they say that it's Harry Truman.
For the longest time, like the zombies were used as sort of a political kind of thing. I remember watching this one movie where like the zombies came back and it was all the soldiers, and it was
Yeah,
the whole kind of thing where it was like they were voting, they would vote and die.
that was
Masters of Horror.
that was Masters of Horror. That was directed by
Oh shoot, I don't remember.
Joe Dante.
Yeah.
Who unfortunately his work keeps getting more and more painfully political. That episode should have been hilarious. It just hurt too much to watch.
Yeah, it was pretty bad.
And
That's always the risk you take when you go political. When something goes political and it gets it right, it can be really good. But when, more often than not, you just trip and everything. You end up alienating a whole chunk of your audience.
Yeah. Well, I mean, most of the time zombies were just, zombies or any of those kind of shows were just used to show like something else. It was like, why did these people die? You know what I mean?
From a storytelling and literary perspective, the attraction of zombies, in my opinion, is that it can be all things to all people. It's the fantasy of the cozy catastrophe. Yeah, the world ends and people have a great time surviving. That's one angle. It's the perfect leftist fantasy because society collapses and they get to rebuild it, and anyone who's bad, they can shoot without feeling any guilt because they're already dead.
Yeah, it's the perfect right-wing fantasy because you finally have used all that ammo you've been stockpiling in your basement.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Is that it also is the perfect anarcho-capitalist fantasy because only you get your vision of self-reliance as the person who gets to survive.
Mm-hmm.
But really, it's just a very safe and convenient way to tackle those sorts of tensions and to portray a global catastrophe without having an enemy that we feel uncomfortable with. And I would compare this to after 9/11, zombies became extremely popular because in the one way, our cultural zeitgeist is we were trying to process this horrible thing happening to us.
Mm-hmm.
And zombies appealed to both left and right for different reasons and could embody that. The horrible enemy that we couldn't understand that was complete abomination, or on the left, well, you couldn't hate Middle Eastern people for doing it. That was wrong and politically incorrect. But you could express zombies being shot and despised because, well, they're not alive anyways. They're supposed to be dead. And everyone goes quiet.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I wasn't sure whether I was supposed to agree with you or not. Like,
no, you don't have to agree with me.
Are zombies supposed to be dead?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, and like I said, it's just they were that. I mean, I think people, you're absolutely right. People do use them as that, like because they can fulfill, like you said, they fulfill anything that anybody wants to kill.
Right.
Because you feel right killing. Well, they're supposed to be dead, right? So we can kill them.
Yeah, exactly. They're already dead. They're an abomination. They shouldn't be here. And they're also not alive. They don't have a brain, so you don't even have to feel bad about killing them. It's not really murder.
So what did you think about since we're on the whole monster kick, we might as well, because I mean, for a lot of time, I was it? I don't know. Lindsay Ellis, a fairly fairly big video essay YouTuber. And she writes a lot about, or not writes, but she speaks a lot about the whole monster thing. And she always says that it's like an allegory for racial or feminist discrimination. All of it? That's what they were going off on that. Yeah.
Well, okay. Romero's, what is it? Night of the Living Dead.
Mm-hmm.
He says that it wasn't really intentional, but by virtue of it, the way he did it, the idea of it being about the civil rights movement and the tensions in the South between blacks and whites kind of just took shape on its own in kind of an organic way.
Mm-hmm.
And there is the scene that I actually even kind of referenced. Has anyone? I'll get to that. Good question, Elton Borges, or Borges. I don't know. Sorry. Tell me which one's the right pronunciation. I had kind of jokingly referenced this earlier in Night of the Living Dead. I said, well, if you look out your back window, your sliding glass door, are there dead-looking redneck guys wandering around your backyard? And that scene is there in Night of the Living Dead. The black guy looks out there, and there's 4 rednecks kind of just wandering around ominously in his backyard.
Yeah.
And I jokingly said, well, that's scary if they're alive or dead.
Yeah, I know. I hate when that happens.
And so in that sense, while Romero says that the original intent of Dawn of the Dead was that he had felt the 60s had failed, and he had always thought, oh, well, the 60s would wake everyone up. And he says, well, Jesus, what's it going to take for the world to wake up? So he made this movie where the dead rise and start killing everyone, and still people haven't woken up to it, was the point. That was the original point of the zombies in that movie, and that it just kind of organically, by virtue of story elements, became kind of a metaphor for the civil rights movement. But movies after that and zombie stories after that, no, the zombies kind of reflected whatever they needed to be at the time.
What was the recent one that won like a lot of awards? Was it The Shape of Water?
I didn't see it.
Was that about zombies?
It was about a water creature, and he flat out said that was about like racism.
Oh.
Like, because
every movie is about racism these days.
Well, I know, right? But is it said like that it was I think like Cold War era, or like no, it was before that. It was like I think it was set in like the 40s or 50s or something like that. But it was like the creature from the Black Lagoon kind of thing, and they found it and they were trying to like, oh, well, we're gonna study it and it's gonna be big. But like some nurse was like, no, I love it.
Oh yes, that film.
Oh, so we're back on Twilight again.
Yes.
Basically, she's just like, no, I love it. I'm gonna have sex with it.
So
actually, graphically describe the sex they had. It's great.
Cool, full circle.
So, let's go back some. We had a question.
It's completely, we're on Swamp Monster. Swamp Monster love scenes. We gotta
right there.
Elton Borges asks, has anyone here watched I Am Hero? No, I haven't yet. I'm familiar with both the manga and the film. I was watching previews of it, ironically, a few nights ago. It definitely looks like something I need to see.
I haven't even heard of that one.
It's a Japanese film based on a manga about essentially a zombie apocalypse, and the zombies in that seem pretty intense. It's a kind of a different take on it from what I can tell, but I don't want to make any definitive statement until I watch it.
As usual, manga seems to be one of the only territories where people are breaking new ground and doing interesting things with storytelling.
Well, sadly, because we're in such a creative dead or cultural dead period right now, in the mainstream at least, there's a lot of interesting stuff happening underneath in the in the basement of culture, I suppose, that hopefully it will break out eventually. But because of that, really, if you want to access something that's cutting edge and interesting, you have to look elsewhere. Foreign films, mangas. Japan has been producing a lot of great material. So has Korea.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of gotten to the point where they're no longer taking their influences from us. We're taking influence from them because, well, look what we're getting from our mainstream culture.
Yeah. The third Charlie's Angels,
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
And I don't even from that, like, I would go so far as to say that even the things that are like quote unquote fine, that people really like, that are successful, stuff like like the Marvel Studios stuff, I would argue that doesn't really add anything. Or
who was it? Wasn't it Scorsese? Like, just said that.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Shit.
It's like just this sort of McDonald's brand entertainment where it's like, yeah, it's fun and it's cool, but you sit down and do you remember any of it? Like,
the only Marvel movie that really had any impact and had any real meaning or humanity to it was Iron Man.
I was about to say that.
And after that, it just kind of was a slide downhill. Iron Man 2 had some there, but they were already kind of putting the muzzle on the franchise by then.
I think Winter Soldier was trying.
It was. It really was.
It could have been even better.
Yeah.
You had moments. The best moments of Winter Soldier are not with Winter Soldier and the fights and everything. It's between Natasha and Captain America and Steve, where she's like, because I thought that was so cool that she was so indoctrinated. She was so much turned into this spy that even when she was with the nicest guy in the world who just wanted to be her friend, she couldn't do it.
Yeah, I liked Winter Soldier too.
It
makes a lot of sense. I think that I might have been a little mean of me to just refer to all Marvel movies as McDonald's.
No.
No, I don't think they were.
Sorry.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Sort of a watershed moment for me happened when I saw Joker, and I was just like, wow, like what has everybody else been doing? Like, I was floored by that movie.
I wanted to, but I've been super busy.
Okay. Well, it feels like a real movie. It feels like a piece of art.
Well, hopefully we're seeing the return or the swing back towards actual meaning in our art, and hopefully the lawyers and the lobbyists get less and less sway in Hollywood as they lose more and more money. But
I mean, all of these shows are losing money like crazy. What is it, like Charlie's Angels made $8 million?
Yeah, I really think the future is watching. We really just need Hollywood to just implode and have a competitive market again. Indie films, you have to look hard, but you can find them, are still producing good stuff. Indie books are the only things worth reading anymore.
That's definitely true.
That means we need to someone needs to destroy Disney. So vote for whoever wants to take.
I think they're doing a good job on their own.
Well, if they keep producing bombs like The Last Jedi and
the problem is that like there are so many Disney zombies out there.
Oh, here we go again.
It doesn't matter. I mean, like Lion King was the stupidest, weirdest, terrifying thing I've ever seen, and it still made over $1 billion.
Yeah, but that's the broad approach. They're approaching everything from the idea that it has to be all things to all people. They want every audience.
Yeah,
nothing. No reason that you can't just market to intelligent people and get their money.
No, you can't. You can't do that.
That's sort of prevalent in a lot of different art forms. I've been playing this game called Death Stranding lately, and everybody I talk to either they just have wildly different opinions on it.
Yeah, I've seen that. It's very divisive. Like people
very divisive, but and that makes it feel like it matters. It makes it feel like this is something I should be playing.
Ryan Johnson, I remember he had this video, and he said, "Oh yeah, man, I don't want a movie that everybody likes. I want people to come out and half people say they hate it, and half people say they like it."
Well, to start out with that as your goal is the most see-through, like, it's so transparent when you're like, oh, that's what I want. That's
intellectual bullscape artistic kind
right. When you're trying to do something unique, people are going to react differently to it. That's just how it is. And Death Stranding is really unique, and people are going to hate it. People are going to love it, but I'm never going to forget it.
Okay.
Yeah.
What affected you about it?
The way the story is presented is very interesting. It's about a man with the fear of being touched, which already I find very relatable. And he's in this very loosely defined apocalypse, and we sort of learn more and more about it as the story progresses through exploring and through events. And the way that the world came to end is so fascinating and unusual compared to all these other apocalypse stories. I found myself engrossed in it, and it's also legitimately frightening. One of the only games I've played in a long time that was legitimately frightening.
Is he afraid of people?
He's afraid of being touched.
Just being touched.
Yeah, so he works as like a mailman in these post-apocalyptic wastelands.
He welcomes the apocalypse.
Kind of, yeah. And when he's called upon to like relink the world, he's kind of like, it doesn't even matter. We don't, the world's over. What point would that even have?
So you're playing a nihilistic character?
At first. But there's the magic of it. Is at first he's this nihilistic, like, oh, I don't want to do this. But as he goes across on his journey, it starts becoming more and more apparent that he's got more
Please
in
don't
it.
tell me he finds like a significant other and changes everything. And he got quiet.
Sorry? I actually didn't hear you. You cut out for a second.
Oh, I
there.
said, please don't tell me he finds a significant other or a virtual significant other, and then all of a sudden,
No, what's really interesting actually is the primary relationship is him and his estranged sister,
okay,
who's on the other side of the country, but can talk to him through like holograms and stuff. And they have this backstory that is clearly very complicated, and it has to do with their mother, who's the president of the United States. And, okay, I mean, and so she was trying to relink the country, and it's sort of he takes on as he takes her job on.
he takes the president's job on.
No, he takes his sister's job on, linking the country. She takes the president's job on.
So his sister becomes the president, and
Yes.
he becomes
A mailman.
somebody who's got a link. Okay, he becomes Kevin Costner.
Yes. Yes, it's a lot like that.
Is this Costner?
Yeah.
What was that movie?
Yeah, the Postman.
Okay, there you go.
That movie shouldn't have sucked, but it did.
Yeah, it really shouldn't have. And Death Stranding is basically that in the future, and it doesn't suck.
In fact, I think a good editor could fix that movie.
I would agree with you.
Anyway, so to veer it towards writing, we're nearing the end of the show here. I don't want to do this over an hour and a
I'm
half.
trying to explain Death Stranding. That was a mistake.
William,
Yes.
as a writer, what influences you and what has affected you as you create? What is the what are the standout pieces of art, be it literary or other, that has really stuck with you and has found its way into your writing?
Prydain is the biggest one. The Chronicles of Prydain. But close behind that are the Chronicles of Narnia, Berserk, Stephen King's It, Deltora Quest.
And why?
These are all these sort of it's all fantasy, but there's something else to it, and that's always what I've really liked to read, and that's what I wanted to write too. I wanted to write something that wasn't just something you would read and forget about. I wanted something that would stick and make you remember it for a long time.
Substance, meaning you actually want it to resonate with readers. Which
Yes, another reason it has no place in YA.
YA essentially is, you're right, cat lady SJW woke crap. That's all it means anymore. The genre itself has become nothing but an ongoing series of purity tests and backbiting.
Mm-hmm.
If you read the literary trades, YA has become such a clusterfuck of woke politics and who's going to be woker than thou and who's a secret racist. You don't even don't even bother with the genre.
It's either that or it's a copy of Harry Potter in another way.
Yeah.
Or of Twilight.
Yep.
Or of Hunger Games.
Mm-hmm.
So Dune doesn't factor into anything, huh?
Oh, Dune.
I see your avatar there, and you didn't mention Dune.
Oh, well, the avatar comes from my last name is Hastings, and my YouTube name is Hastings, and so I use Sting the actor and Sting the wrestler as my icon a lot of the time.
Oh, okay.
Dune is one of my favorite books of all time, and the arc that the protagonist has in The Crimson Spark and the arc that the protagonist has in Dune are actually very similar.
Are there two protagonists or one?
The boy protagonist has a similar arc to the character from Dune.
And that would be
his rising to heroism from the. How do I explain this? I'm really trying not to spoil because only one of the 8 books is out. He has a grander destiny thrust upon him, and he believes himself to be too weak to handle it.
Okay.
He also has to, I'm not spoiling anything. He also has to shoulder a man's burden way early.
Yes.
So in a sense, we're tapping into, again, another classic archetype in a story that resonates for generations or as long as there have been humans, which is, we all have to kind of grow up and accept burdens that are greater than ourselves that we may or may not be able to handle.
Yeah,
you see
you
that in Dune?
and you fail every once in a while.
And the greatest teacher failure is.
Mm-hmm. I had someone arguing with me that some character was a heroine's journey because it's like, oh well, her conflict or whatever is inner conflict, and so you just can't see it. And I'm like, well, you still have to fail, so there has to be some sign of that impairment.
There's no such thing as a heroine's journey. It's either you grow as a hero or you fail and your character sucks. Gender doesn't mean anything on that.
No, I mean it's just there's like hero's journey and heroine's journey, but I mean,
well,
I disagree.
No, gender does matter in the hero's journey in every way, and I'll tell you why. Speaking literarily and mythologically, if you go throughout the whole of mythology, you don't find a universal classic heroine's journey, and there's a reason for it, and it's not some bullshit sexism reason. The reason that the hero's journey developed is from day one has always been the question, when does a boy cease to be a boy and when does he become a man? And that is what the hero's journey symbolizes, and it's our way as a culture to work through that concept of, okay, well, when is a boy a man?
Mm-hmm.
And what is a boy's place in society when he becomes a man? Because those are questions that are largely unanswered throughout generations. And the flip side is that women, by and large, when she's a woman. It's when she can conceive. That's always been known. And until recently, at least, what was a woman's role in that society? The most important role was ensuring the next generation.
Mm-hmm.
Her place in the tribe was known. And that's why the idea of a heroine's journey is a rather recent development.
Yeah, I mean, it's only like the 1920s. It's like,
that's about around the time when it started to actually arise and take shape.
Mm-hmm.
I actually, do you mind if I say something real quick about Spark?
Yeah.
Okay. The female protagonist of Spark, I've mentioned a couple of times that she dresses like a boy. This is because she comes from a background that made her hate women. She hates women. She hates femininity. She hates being a woman, but she is, and she knows that, and that sort of eats her up. And her goal is sort of in contrast to Leo, the boy who's the boy becoming a man. Her is kind of accepting that she is female, and that doesn't necessarily have the weaknesses that she ascribes to it attached.
Oh, I got you. Okay. I can understand that.
So I think we're hitting an hour here. I figure we can, unless anybody's got something to add, should we draw this to a close?
I mean, I can always talk more. It's just depends. I mean, can we see a couple pages of this Crimson Spark?
Yeah. Let me share my screen with you guys real quick.
So we can at least get that going.
Do you guys want the Amazon page or the page on my website?
I would say the page on your website, because it'll also show your cover art, correct?
Oh, yes, it will.
Yeah.
Yeah. Show us that art, baby.
And before we sign off, everyone, be sure to do all those things like subscribe and upvote and hit the bell and all that other crap.
Doesn't he sound excited?
Well, the thing is, at this point, it doesn't even work much anymore. I mean, it will, but...
This is what you should do, people. You should go outside and scream to the heavens that this is the greatest show you have ever heard. And if you don't, we will find you.
It's true.
Well, YouTube's been working against our channel. We know we're getting throttled. We used to get thousands of views, and now it's only in the hundreds.
It sucks when they change that algorithm, man. It's so disingenuous.
Well, they're obviously they're throttling like the smaller channels, and they only want to propagate who they want to propagate, which is usually the people that are already famous, because they don't want to be responsible for the content anymore. I mean, that's obvious, because they're allowing all these regulations to come in and say blah 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 blah, and now they're like, oh, so you're going to get kicked out if you're not perfect. So yeah.
Okay, so I hit the share screen button, but
they have to share it on their end.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Yeah, we're still. This is our first one of these, so
that's okay. Yeah, I've had no idea. Okay, so this is the cover of the Crimson Spark. It went through about 14 different iterations, but I really love this one. That's Leo on the left and Nia on the right. And you can see this hand reaching out for them. That sort of is, it is something that happens in the story, but it is also a metaphor for a bunch of other different things that happen in the story. The plot synopsis is down there. All about breaking the shackles of the mind.
You gonna read it for us?
I would love to read it for you, but I don't know if I'm quite theatrical enough.
All right, let me see if I can do this any justice. Break the shackles of the mind.
There we go. That's what I'm talking about.
Leo is a boy grieving his twin. Nia is a girl living as a boy to escape her past. Two slaves carrying the scars of abuse. They form a connection, only to be split apart when their ship arrives in the Kengian archipelago, a mysterious and fragmented land cut off from the rest of the world. Leo becomes apprenticed to, I cannot pronounce this.
That's all right. Sayariu.
Sayariu, a homeless, wandering swordsman known as a vagabond. It's kind of redundant, but together the two set out on a quest to find a stolen weapon locked away in a catacomb city. Tormented by a crippling injury and an anxious heart, Leo must find the strength within himself to keep going. Meanwhile, Nea is conscripted by the captain of the Royal Guard, who ropes her into search for a group of men hunting a boy matching Leo's description. But to Nea's dismay, the captain is a woman, and Nea must fight past her hateful and damaged mind if she ever hopes to earn her freedom. When a former child soldier threatens to spark a revolution, Leo and Nea will choose sides. Will they try to save this cruel land, or will they punish it? To find the answer, read the book. They must confront the horror in their past and fight for the greatest freedom of all, the freedom from fear that rules their hearts. The Crimson Spark is an emotional and captivating fantasy adventure, a story about innocence lost and righteousness found. The Black Cauldron meets Berserk in a story about how even the most broken souls can be whole together.
That was beautiful.
You have an awesome reading voice.
That was fantastic. You should do the audiobook. Shit.
Thanks.
And below that, we have some very kind words from some of the grown-up writers that have helped me sort of get along on my way here.
Oh, nice.
Perhaps the most compelling fantasy epic I've read in years. William Hastings weaves his setting with the same sense of breathless wonder and shivering terror as Tolkien himself. Characters leap off the page as they brawl, weep, and love before your very eyes. And I guess that's by Adam Lane Smith.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of Adam Lane Smith, guys, go back his Kickstarter. He just launched it today. It's called Savage Hunters, and it's a YA light novel series that looks really good. I can't wait for this.
Best-selling author of Slaying Your Fear and Deuce Volt Wastelanders. Imaginative high fantasy, peopled with engaging characters in a colorful and original setting. Did he mean steepled?
I think he means people.
Okay, people. We're to people the land. Brian Niemeyer, award-winning author of Soul Cycle and Combat Frame X. A moving, thoughtful fantasy that balances its action and excitement with deep characters, head and shoulders above standard YA fare. Alexander Helene, author of The Last Ancestor.
There
So
you
go
go.
check it out.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
And for all of you listening, at the end of the month, New Adventures in Awful.
Yes.
Kat will be savaging Kim and Kim. What just happened?
Yeah, we have Twitters, I believe. William, you have a Twitter, right?
Yes, I'm at Mr. Will Hastings.
I am at Dr. Wright is in. When the doctor is in, the fun can begin, baby. Let's go.
Dr. Feelgood. No. And I'm at cat_AIA, or you can catch me at nighteditor.com.
And let me tell you, if you guys have time on your hands, go check out the Night Editor on YouTube and any of Cat, like, what is it, Adventures in Awful? And you guys had another series for a while. Talking Shop. All of those, absolutely fantastic. You can find some of them on insider.net if you want to go there and find them a little bit more easily, or you can just obviously just search for them. But anything they do is amazing. I especially recommend, still love it to this day, issues, pointed, addressed to young men.
Thank you. I put a lot into that.
That is one of the best videos you'll ever spend any time watching on YouTube. It should be in the millions. It really should.
And I am J.Ishiro Finney, author and alien in a human suit. You can find me on Twitter at J.Ishiro. Buy my books, Case File Arkham, World War Kaiju, and Utopiates on Amazon.com. And hire Kat to edit your book because she's a professional editor.
And I won't be done with Opal Embers until later this year, so she's got free time before then.
Clock's ticking though.
And go check out Kronk's channel. It's funny.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Talk to you later.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Night.